and then you say, oh wow, it's so cool, I want to go back either later tonight or tomorrow morning, and I want to keep learning about Drupal or whatever the topic is. Well, what happens is tomorrow morning you get up and it's like the alarm clock goes off and it's like business as usual, and all of a sudden a week goes by and you haven't done anything. So we started up what we call a virtual self-study group. The core example is, how can we learn and keep the education going beyond our experience here as a group? 99% of our month is spent not in meetup groups. It's spent working, it's spent sleeping, it's spent with our family. So the virtual self-study group is a way in which we can get together, not virtually in the sense of actually meeting in a certain place at a certain time, but we use a book, and depending on the topic, we decide what that topic is, we decide on the book, and then it's up to you to follow through on the book whenever it's most convenient for you. It might be first thing in the morning, it might be at night, it might be only on the weekends, it might be you put it there for 3 weeks and then all of a sudden you scramble to get 3 chapters done. So right now we've got, we're finishing up one group, and that virtual self-study group is, yeah, it depends on back, forward, back. I think we're in the reverse order.
Are we?
Yeah, go the other direction. Yes, that one.
Here we go.
So HTML5 brunch, we're learning about implementing responsive design. We did that over the summer. We have 4 graduates of that program, and we're just about winding it down right now. But the next slide back is, these are the 2 programs we're about to start up in September. So we've already announced this one. This is our 7th season of what we call PHP Percolate. It's an intermediate to advanced class to learn all about e-commerce. So you got to have a fairly good handle on PHP if you want to take this program. But e-commerce obviously is a hot topic. You want to be able to buy and sell things, and there are a whole lot of security issues and other things. So we're using Larry Ullman's book called Effortless E-commerce. We're going to be starting that in September, and Mike Murphy and David Petrenga, who are veterans of our virtual self-study group, are going to be leading that initiative. It is not going to be a one-and-done, easy kind of a class. There's going to be some work involved here, so this is serious stuff. So only if you're an intermediate to advanced PHP developer should you consider this. The next class we have is really more for beginners. A couple of our talks tonight are going to be on Drupal, and this is a new topic for us. Drupal is built on top of PHP and MySQL, so we've decided that we're going to launch what we call Drupal Diner, and Leslie is going to be leading that initiative. She can identify herself and show us the book that we're going to be using Drupal. So we're going to announce this officially tomorrow. So you're going to get an email from us about this. And one of our presenters tonight is Nick. He's going to be talking about Drupal. He's also going to be assisting with the program. So these are really cool ways in which you can continue the learning beyond just meeting in the group here right now. So those are 2 coming up. You'll hear more about that. And then the final thing that we do is we've launched over the summer, we've launched a job board. So if you want to learn about opportunities that are in the job market, you want to learn about opportunities to maybe advance your career, maybe you have an opportunity, we have this job board that we've just initiated. It's part of a Google group. So if you go to the front page of the website on the left-hand side, you'll see a job openings image. Just click that, and it'll tell you how to sign up for the Google group. We have more than 130 people that have opted in. We have more than 20 jobs that have been posted over the last couple of months. And I just got some feedback beforehand from one of the persons who's in the group who said, hey, I really found a neat opportunity, and I actually got to chat with the person, as opposed to you see a job and you post the job and it goes into a black hole and you never hear about it. So this is for members, by members. So hopefully we're one growing, big, happy family, and this job board is going to be part of our process moving forward. So if you have any questions about the virtual self-study groups or the job board, just see me afterwards.
Thanks, Gene. Right now, I'd like to pass the microphone around for people who might have announcements. We usually use this time to allow people to stand up and say something like, I have, this certain set of skills, I'm looking for a job, or people use it to say, I work for a company, this is what we're working on, and we're hiring, and these are the skills we're hiring for, or there's this great event that I'm organizing in the future. Does anybody have announcements that they'd like to share with the group? Don't be shy. No. All right. Well, there is one announcement that I want to highlight. We have a pizza sponsor tonight. The pizza was sponsored by Shape Up, and Colin's here, and he brought a couple of his team members, Ned and Eric. And I just want to give them a couple minutes just to talk about what Shape Up is and why they're interested in talking to us here at Boston PHP. Colin.
Thank you, Matt. So we're Shape Up. We have a social wellness platform which pretty much enables employees of companies to increase their well-being as far as physical, mental, you name it. It's a platform that is very team-oriented and involves employees of companies to get involved and get in better shape. So it's all PHP-based, and one of our architects was generous to come up here for the day, Matt McConnell. He's going to tell you more about the company itself and also some of the exciting things that we're doing right now.
Thank you. How's it going, everybody? My name is Matt McConnell. I'm an architect at ShapeUp. I've been there about 4.5 years. ShapeUp was born out of an idea that we can leverage social interaction to improve our well-being, our overall well-being. That's not just physical, but it's also mental. So one of the things that we've done is we've created a platform that allows large employers to motivate their employees to, like Colin said, compete with each other in physical activity and now also mental activity as far as decreasing stress, eating better. One of the things that we're working on is really scaling our platform. We're moving from this giant code base that we have into a very decentralized system. We're looking for some really good people that know a lot about PHP to really help us out. We have a ton of job openings. You can come see Colin or me afterwards. But it's a really exciting company. We have some former employees here, a couple interviewees. But yeah, it's a really great place. So come see me afterwards.
And just to emphasize that, we are looking for about 3 PHP developers and also a PHP architect that would work on the scalability of the application. So if anybody is interested, please feel free to stop on by and say hi. Thank you.
All right. Good hand. Free pizza. We really appreciate it. The pizza, it costs money, and Boston PHP has a little bit of money, but we always really appreciate it when somebody steps up and pays for the pizza. It's great. So thanks again, Colin. Any other announcements? Did anybody change their mind in that? No? Oh, Bobby reminded me. All right. A group usually goes to the bar after this. So there's a bar in Kendall Square called Champions Bar. And so head over there. There's usually, Bobby will, are you headed there tonight? Yeah. So look for Bobby after the event when we end at 9. And it's a short walk away. It's in the Marriott building. Our next meetup is in September. It's on a Thursday, September 11th. It's Introduction to RESTful APIs, and guess what? We don't have a speaker. So this is something that we're trying for the first time. We're going to test what the community can do here in terms of producing speakers. So we're going to try this. The first time we're trying this, we're saying, okay, here's a topic that we'd like to see, and we'd like somebody out of those 3,600 members to step up and say, I could do an awesome job at that. So that's on a Thursday, to keep that in mind. We almost always meet on Wednesdays, so just be aware that night is a Thursday. But if you know somebody who might be good, or if you might be good, we'd love to have you talk. Northeast PHP is happening again this year. Northeast PHP has officially become its own entity. It's gotten so large that it's a whole separate thing. We're all still involved to different degrees, but they're actually a separate nonprofit now, separate from Boston PHP. So that's November 6th and 7th. Tickets are still available. They're $150 for 2 days, and that includes food, amazingly. So it's a great deal. I think it's breakfast and lunch. So check that out. It's northeastphp.org or nephp.org. Quick thing about video. So we've been, maybe for the last year or so, we've been using Google Hangouts to stream these live. There's a little Chromebook right here that's streaming this right now. I put up the URL on the meetup site in the comments, also put it in the description, so if there are people who you know who might be interested in this event, you can share that with them. And we're always looking for video help. You can see this is not the greatest setup in the world. It's one webcam from a laptop pointing sideways. There are ways to improve this. There are very easy ways we can improve this with a second laptop and somebody to use the Hangout app to toggle between the display screen and the presenter. That would be a fairly easy thing to do, but we need somebody who's really going to be doing it. Somebody to set it up and manage it and bring their own laptop. So if any of you have interest in helping us push that forward, I'd love to talk with you about it. Again, sponsorship, we really appreciate Shape Up doing the pizza tonight, and we always really appreciate Microsoft. They've rolled out the red carpet for us for years, and we can't say enough about how nice they've been to us. They let us use this space every month, totally for free. If you want to get involved, let us know. That's my email address. If you feel like you have skills they could contribute to this group, let us know. We'd like to hear from you. So I'm going to get out of this, and I'm going to talk about the format for tonight. So we now have 6 presenters, okay? It's 7:14 right now. Time is important in this. So Microsoft wants us to be out of the building, lights off at about 9 o'clock. So each of the 6 presenters have 15 minutes. And that means that we need to be real sticklers for that 15 minutes, okay? We apologize in advance. Bobby has a large hook that he has in the other room back there, and if he needs to use it, he'll grab you and drag you away from the podium. But what we need is we need an official timekeeper. Would anybody like to be our total stickler timekeeper for this 15 minutes? I can wait. All right, right there. What's your name?
I got all day. Toby.
Toby's going to be our timekeeper, right? No, don't be shy, Toby. At like 13 minutes, start to give some sort of wave. 15 minutes, it's everybody's got to leave the podium. So questions, we've got to be careful about that. I think we'll have a short period of time afterwards for questions. But if you're a speaker, try and manage questions. And if it looks like you're getting a little bombarded, say, okay, we've got to keep moving. So we've got Brian Johnson, we've got Kay, we've got Nick, who's going to be talking about Drupal. So Kay and Nick are both talking about Drupal stuff. And we actually have 2 version control talks. So Brian's talking a little bit about version control.
I switched mine.
Oh, you did? What are you now?
Stellar.
Stellar?
So you know what that is.
I don't know what that is. All right, so we have an update here.
I put it on
Oh, you did? Nice, okay. So Kay and Nick are going to talk about Drupal stuff. Al's talking about Stellar. Aram's talking about, well, we've got the last 2 things are really sort of performance, handling a lot of traffic. Aram and John are both going to be talking about that. So Brian's going to start, and I'll get out of the way. Here we go. So we'll start the time when somebody actually starts.
Yes, oh yeah, that's what I mean. We'll give you some
Yeah, that doesn't count.
Connections don't count. Do you want the pedal mic?
That might be good.
Yeah, these are usually.
Put that in your pocket and just put that up high.
Is it on?
Yep, you're on it.
All right.
So I guess the good thing about going first is you guys know it can't get worse than me. All right, so bear with me while I figure out this part. But wait, this is not quite on. I have to check to see if you want to. Does anyone know how to make this thing work so I can see my notes on one screen here and the other thing on?
I can just see if I can help.
I did this one.
Oh, so you're mirror, right? Everything's mirror. So I'm not sure. You know, I'm not a Windows guy.
There you go.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. Thanks for your patience. Okay, so I'm BKJ Productions, and my topic tonight is using WinMerge and how to optimize your development process. Just a brief thing about my company. I've been around since 1991, and we're managing about 50 WordPress sites mostly, and we are looking for a junior programmer. We have more of an educational kind of environment where we're looking for people who don't know a lot but are willing to learn things, and it's kind of a really fun, quiet environment. So if anyone's sort of interested in, a junior programmer type job, you can see me afterwards. So where to find WinMerge? First off, I'm going to put this slide up later. You can go to winmerge.org. Just watch out for that attractive green button over there, because it'll try to make you download something else that you probably don't want to do. But it's a free program, and it's really pretty cool. How many people here already know about WinMerge or are using WinMerge? And how many people use Subversion or Git, some sort of version control? So you people probably will laugh at me because I don't get Git. It's just, in my workflow, it's just too hard to do. So here's kind of my take on if you're kind of new to PHP programming and you don't want to go to the learning curve that Git might require. That's not to say that things that I'm doing here can't be done with Git, or you could do them in tandem, but I found this for my way around that problem of, oh my god, I gotta do Git. What WinMerge does is it lets you compare two folders at once, and from that you can see really interesting patterns emerge. So here's like a sample thing. It's got a very crude interface. It just opens up, and you select your left two folders. You have a left and a right, and you have a file spec too. So you could say, well, gosh, I only want to look for PHP files or CSS files or things like that. Those are your typical suspects. Usually, I just sort of choose everything to compare those. It also integrates with the operating system. So you can right-click two folders, and that's really handy. So you can say, compare these two folders. If you've got a lot of stuff in your folder, it might take a long time to compare them. I've done things like with 1,000 files in it, and it's taken half a minute or so on a decent laptop. And what you get then is a let's see, what we're going to do in this example is we're going to go through. I'm sorry. Here we're showing WinMerge is showing us some files that it's found, and you can see some things are in the left column only, and some things are in the right in that middle column. You have these columns of kind of like an operating system, and you can customize them. So if you don't want to see the left date and you only want to see the right date of the file differences, you can do that. It's kind of like an operating system. You can check and choose which file names, which columns you want to see. So you could see the creation time if that's something that's significant to you. And you can move the columns around too to make it a little easier to use. You can also use it as a little sort of operating tool assistant where you've got two sets of files, and like I'm using Dreamweaver all the time. So I get these stupid DWSync XML files that I really don't want to have around. So I can just delete them right away from within WinMerge, and that kind of saves me a lot of time. Now here's where WinMerge has opened up one file that exists in two places. So we're looking at style CSS. And the thing I find very valuable is over on the left, you see those sort of bars of, I don't know, like DNA strips or something there. You're seeing the representation of the text in those files, and the differences are highlighted in yellow. So in my example here, I've got let's see, the theme from the Dockside Restaurant, and on the left I've got version 0.23, and on the right I've got version 0.40. And that's kind of how I keep track of things, is I use my style sheet, as you would do in WordPress, to indicate your versions. If you get too many differences in your files, you can change a couple of other things in the editor. To change your highlight syntax, you can have it break a white space or punctuation, and have it ignore line returns and things like that. So it's got a lot of features there. You just have to dig a little bit if you want to get it under your head. Let's see, you might consider changing the font size to your preferences too if you want to have something more to look at. So when you double click a line on either side, then it's highlighted, and then you can simply right click that line to copy it over to the left, or vice versa. And so here we're comparing the difference between two style sheet declarations for content inner versus entry. And that, as I'm developing things, kind of helps me realize, am I making some mistakes? You know, if I see a lot of differences that are very similar, maybe I need to consider changing the names of some of my divs or the IDs or classes, things like that. So back to the view of the two folders. Here we can see we've got 27 differences in the style sheet. So that's another thing that's very significant as I'm comparing what I did yesterday versus what I did today. Or sometimes I'll use WinMerge, like maybe after a week into a project. Every day I've been making a new version of my style sheet, of my whole theme. And so I can go back and compare version 1 with my most recent version. And then I discover a lot of other efficiencies. It also, besides integrating with operating system in you know, the right-click thing on the desktop, you can also integrate with Dreamweaver and probably a few other applications. And the really cool thing within Dreamweaver is you can say compare with remote server. So it just pulls down a copy of the remote file, and you can look at it locally. And it actually then puts it back up when you're done. And it also retains a backup file in case you need that. So here's kind of some of the examples of things we look for when we review the changes. So again, we've got two theme folders. One was created, you know, day one, and another was created maybe a week later. And in between them, there've been several different other versions of going on. And so what I like to look for are inconsistencies or different patterns that might emerge. So there's the style sheet file where a lot of changes exist because we're doing a lot of cosmetic changes to things as we go along. And again, in our first set of changes we're comparing, we're looking at the version change there at the top of the file. If you look at our little DNA strip down the left, you can see there's sort of sporadic little changes throughout the whole thing, but then there's a big clump of changes at the bottom. If you notice, like that bottom part of the left column, there's these, you know, it's something where I've been making a lot of changes. So I'll just go through and scan, you know, here I've changed the height of the header div, the aref, this has got a logo class, and it's kind of interesting to see I've changed the height. So that's one thing that kind of helps me think, well, maybe I need to go back and check that graphic. You know, if I'm messing around with the height of the graphic, am I scaling and stretching the graphic? And I should go back and recreate a new graphic that's going to be 290 pixels high instead of 185. And there's some other simple changes too, like a few width and height changes that are good to notice. Here it looks like I'm changing the width of the submit button on the newsletter div there. And sometimes you'll see a pattern of changes or clumps. Maybe stuff in the middle is what you really need to pay attention to. But if you're like me, you probably clump a bunch of changes there at the tail end of your style sheet. And that kind of helps you realize, gosh, maybe I should redistribute my changes and put them back where they belong. You don't want to leave your toys lying all around the room. You want to put them in the proper slots. So here's an example of seeing some dot entry variations. On the left, we have the earlier version, and on the right, we have the later version. So I've started doing a whole bunch of changes to something called dot entry. I only had one to begin with on the left, and then suddenly I've got 4 of them, and I can analyze those changes and realize that's an opportunity to try to create a more global rule. And you can see sometimes styles get slightly rearranged. On the left, the photos entry and contact us are all kind of grouped together, and then they got moved down and rearranged a little bit on the right. And you see a couple spacing differences. On the right, we've gotten a little bit better with kind of pretty formatting on style sheet. And here at the end of the document, you can see, it's, like I mentioned earlier, you can see a bunch of style changes there that maybe I should redistribute in the proper places within the style sheet. Here I've changed my comparison to say just only show me the different files of they're in the 2 folders, and then I can see like the menu PHP has 11 changes. The style CSS has 10 changes, so those are ones I really want to look at. Maybe those ones at the bottom, if I'm in a hurry, I don't need to look at because they've only got a couple changes. Let's see, I can also see there at the bottom of this list, you can see I'm showing the write-only files. So those are files that only appear in the, I think, a more recent version. So those are newer files that I should probably, they've been created in the process, like I created a 404 page. Coming down to the end here, I've only got 2 minutes left. Let's see, I'll jump through a few more. As I go through, let me just see. Here I was able to find out, oh, I forgot to put the Google Analytics code in one of my earlier versions, and here it is in the right place. That helps me. That's an opportunity to check, make sure do I have the right Google Analytics code. And you get some statistics that show you all the differences. I'm going to run through a few more slides here. Oh, and you can also right-click 2 files if you want to, from the operating system, if you want to compare any 2 files, you can right-click them and choose them at the operating system level to compare them. Just right-click and choose WinMerge. So it's, you don't have to open up a whole folder and wait to look at differences. So that's kind of it. Again, there's where you can get it, winmerge.org. And try it out. It's pretty easy to use. And I find it very helpful. My team's been using that for collaboration. If someone makes a change, we're not using subversions I mentioned, but it's a way for us to look at, oh, Alana made this change last week, and here's my change, and we can sort of check over things and communicate better.
Just a comment too is if you are a Git user, I've been using WinMerge as a merge tool. Configured Git to actually use WinMerge as the merge tool. So if there's a conflict with the merge branching, it's configured right, which is not easy to configure, but I found it on the internet. And when you say, each instance of a conflict, you hit enter and it will pop up the merge with the two files, and then you save it, resolve your conflict, close it, and it does its thing. And it just does that for each conflict. So once you get it configured, it works really well.
So it integrates with Git as well?
Git, yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Next question. Okay, who is next? I put my laptop back there. Does anybody have the meetup set up? Okay, all right, come on up. Brian, I'm curious, is there an equivalent for Mac?
I haven't found one. I use Mac most of the time anyway, and I haven't found one.
So,
Yeah.
so the Xcode tools come with something called file merge that's been in it forever. That does just a merge tool, right, for source code development, right? So you can do there's tons of Mac code merger things, right? Including when it comes to Xcode from Apple for free from the whole thing. So straight into it, yes. And you can configure Git, Mercurial, Subversion to use these things, right?
Nice.
That's
great.
Actually, there is another tool called deep merge.
Diff merge?
Yeah, deep merge. Okay. Actually, it can be used in the Windows system and also Linux and Mac.
Nice.
I use that in the Linux system.
I mean, merging is built into Git, and so but you can do 8-way merge in Git, right? Which is one of the.
All right. Is this working for you? Did it pop up a second?
You might want to put that on a few moments. Oh, man, that's why you call it.
I don't know, I'm pretty used to projecting, so
Okay.
might overdo it.
We're having some connection issues. Bear with us.
It looks like this dongle might be coming apart, so this doesn't look like.
You have one?
Yeah. Okay.
There's
We'll
also
do it
this. This is also something to try. I've never been able to get that to work with my Mac, but it's worth a try. So it's HDMI to. So, yeah. Oh, you're restarting?
No, unintentionally.
You have no
Hopefully
idea.
not. It was working just a second ago.
Should we do Nick first? Should we have Nick go? Your start fast.
It starts out pretty quickly. I can start out as well. So my last name is pretty impossible, and hopefully it'll pop up on the screen momentarily because I'm sure everybody wants to write it down. I'm Kay Van Valkenburg, and my company is called Own Sourcing. It's been around since 2001, and we've been focusing on Drupal since 2007, which was right when Drupal 5 came out. We're now close to launching 8. We're in Alpha 14 at the moment. The Own Sourcing team contributes actively to core development and to volunteer things in the community and things like that, including sprints, community sprints, which if you haven't heard about, come and ask us afterwards. A great way to get up to speed and see what it means to communicate with or to collaborate with a development community of 6,000 plus developers. Pretty exciting stuff. So hopefully this will pop up momentarily, but I understand Moshe Weitzman presented not too long ago about Drush and Drupal, and there were questions afterward about a good way to get started with development. And so Leslie, who's going to be leading the Drupal Diner training series, sitting right over there, recommended that I.
No application. Login. Window. Name. Edit text as keyword focus. And add /G. Password. Secure edit text.
It's going somewhere.
We do stuff with accessibility, as you might guess. So voiceover is on, and it always comes on for this. All right, so it's still not popping up on the screen.
Let me just make sure.
You know what? Why don't we just use the? I don't think I have anything that I really need on this computer. We can use the desktop thing here.
I'm not sure what's in here.
Weren't you projecting with this just a moment ago?
No, I was using.
Yeah, we can use whatever.
Do you have a dongle that you want to try? Do you have another one of these?
Yeah, maybe that's the thing to do. I hate
Just try that.
taking out.
Want another map?
Well, you need to be on there momentarily anyway, right? But hopefully you wouldn't go through the same thing. Right, exactly. So, I mean, that might not be a bad idea. So see if any will use it. Sorry. It looked like their adapter was kind of coming apart. So maybe you just. Normally, it doesn't have a problem detecting it. What's that?
Let's try the new adapter first. It's not in great shape.
So you're thinking this is? You said you haven't been able to get this one to work.
Yeah. Let's.
There it goes. Cool. There's nothing that totally like messing yourself up and closing all your windows, right?
Okay, can we borrow that adapter for
Yeah.
all the other talks on the people?
Yeah. As long as like I can leave a shoe here as well, so I don't walk out without
Yes.
it. So keep doing that with my adapters. All right, so I just need to think about what needs to be open again. What tabs was I actually using? All right, I'm gonna be. All right. So I'll open Windows as we go. There's a spelling of my name. There's a spelling of Leslie's name. How to get a hold of us. There are a few different references in the slideshow, so I assume it's useful to either put it on the meetup site or something along those lines. Was it Terrence the timekeeper? No, it's somebody who started. Toby the timekeeper. Guess I'm rolling. So I wanted to talk about getting started with Drupal, but not couch it in the kind of narrow focus that you might kind of first suspect, and actually talk about if you're developing for in a commercial situation, what are your considerations, what are your requirements usually, and how do we typically address those as a community? Typical requirements and just really broad brushstrokes, I think, fall into these three categories. If there's a category I'm missing, it'd be great to have someone shout it out. I wrote this a few minutes ago. So dev requirements, the checklist, you typically have to architect what you're going to do and prove your concepts. You typically then need to produce and manage the build, and then you need to maintain that website, let's say, to a certain set of criteria. And so if we're not ignoring any of those, what's the tool chain that we really want to use? And I think that the Drupal community has done a pretty good job of adopting, very high quality, custom grade tools that we can help each other on and kind of give each other tips on, and work pretty effectively. And so I just wanted to kind of run through some of the things that will get us, the 273,000 miles that we have to travel on a project in a commercial situation. So our tool chain, in order to architect and prototype things, we rely very heavily on Drupal.org and on contributed code, and that may or may not match the predilection of people in the room, I'd be curious, but maybe in a different conversation, talk a little bit about how people like to do that. We think a lot about upgrade paths, what the site's going to require in, let's say, 3 years and things like that, and how things are going to evolve, what security issues are going to potentially be reported, and how we keep up with that. And as a result, we do a series of proofs of concept, and the Drupal community is really a great source of information for us. So I actually put Drupal.org down at the bottom in the community in this checklist, but it's one that we can come back to again. When we're right at the beginning of the architecture phase, one of the very focused tools that's quite useful is simply test.me, and I'll show examples of each of these. And then something that I recommend for people who really want to get started with Drupal and not just kind of futz around for a little while, actually is dive in, not to the code, dive into the UI and see just how far you can get in the UI. And just like be patient and maybe a little condescending, but see how Drupal works through the UI, and don't touch code for a little while. When it comes to some of the items in the tool chain, I have similar recommendations when it comes to Git. We got 6 commands for you. Don't learn any others for 2 months. I'll give you some workarounds as well. But learn Git because it's really an important part of this tool chain, not just for source code management and diffing, but also for actually moving your code to a server and that type of thing. So it's very powerful, and I think quite a necessary part of commercial grade tool chain. So if you want to take the advice around diving into the UI, a really good place to do that is DrupalGardens.com. You can also spin up sites on webenabled.com or pantheon.com, and just jump right into the UI. And then we'll also look at a tool for a local server where you can do much the same thing. But that's a pretty strong recommendation actually. Is don't start by walking through the code. You're never going to get there, for one thing. And I'm not sure you'll come to a really clear understanding of the power of Drupal. But let's say we've gone through that part and we're really ready to start working on the code, which I think is what most people here, I assume, are probably particularly interested in. In that case, you obviously definitely want to run a local server. And a couple of the choices, if you're already on a Linux box, then the LAMP stack is a very natural choice. Probably don't need to go into that too much if you're not on a Linux box, but you still like working in Linux, which is without a doubt, one of the best ways of doing serious development. Then I definitely can recommend strongly Vagrant VirtualBox. There's a really good trend, I think, a healthy trend within the Drupal community, and certainly much more broadly, to share, setups. You can find a lot of them on GitHub, and you can jumpstart a lot of different projects, including things, let's say, as advanced as integrating Drupal 8 with various libraries, and let's say user acceptance testing, which is pretty important for us. So getting Vagrant and VirtualBox working, it's still bumpy enough that it's not for the faint of heart. And certainly there are some ways of getting this done that are a bit more polished and worked out, and you can push a button and get it going. And again, typically people resist this idea. I understand why they resist it, but here's a recommendation. The recommendation is find some tools that don't need maintenance for a little while, and just remove that from the landscape of challenges. Remove those as hurdles, and learn about your core focus, which, if it's web development, would probably not be all these other tools. So just following that recommendation a little bit. And by the way, just out of curiosity, because I can't help myself, how many people here love working on, I don't know, your bike or your car or your boat or your skateboard? You just love tinkering. It's as fun to tinker as it is to use. It could be anything. Yeah, tinkerers. I know it. I'm sure of it. I'm a tinkerer too. I love it. When it comes to actually getting projects done, I think we can explore a middle path between the tinkering and the kind of like completely touch-free type of thing. It lets you still get under the hood. I think that that's probably worthwhile. So that's kind of the middle path I would say. So ignore the tinkerer side of you for a little while and put on your hat of, I'm going to get this project delivered on time with budget certainty, with quality in place and all that type of stuff. And then, as I said, Dribble.org, I think one of my biggest regrets, if I could have 2 years of my life back, and this probably sounds really cheesy, but if you haven't been there, you don't really know what I'm talking about. I would not have spent my first 2 years of Drupal kind of professional development not actively communicating with the community and participating in kind of community stuff. The velocity with which we delivered projects just like skyrocketed as soon as we got involved with the Drupal community. And it was kind of, well, let's put it this way. When we switched from, we were doing mostly Flash development, switched to Drupal, we were delivering the same projects for a third of the budget. And it was just like stunning. They weren't as pretty, definitely, and Flash, we were heavily into animation and things like that. But when it came actually to having data be our main focus, Drupal cut our project budgets, to 30% of what they had been, and we delivered far more. So it's really incredible, as I think, as just like a get it done type of approach, and with keeping up to date on security and things like that, it's been quite good. The next kind of bump in our abilities wasn't necessarily a budget cut; it was the ability to deliver even that much more, and that was getting involved. So hopefully, enough said on that point. We'll switch to actual examples, and I'm happy to talk about that stuff more. So the Get It Done tool that I would recommend, there are a couple of flavors of this type of thing, but it's basically a tool that will let you handle all of those different steps that I was talking about, all the way through maintenance and everything like that, with very little need for you to actually tinker with the tool itself. You can pretty much forget about the tool. And it's Acquia Dev Desktop, free to download. Actually, I'm going to at least go to the. All right, yeah, that's right. We needed to reopen Windows as we went. So that should get us there. Oh, it does that to me. It remembers that I'm logged in. When you land on Acquia Dev Desktop, on acquia.com/downloads, you can choose between Mac and Windows downloads, and make that actually a little more readable. Great. Like I said, you can get similar things, Calamabox, Calama. This is a VirtualBox version. It's very similar. This one's still maybe not quite as mature, but still quite powerful. It integrates with Drupal optimized host called Pantheon, and I think is going to be able to integrate with others shortly. And Acquia Dev Desktop integrates with their Acquia Cloud service. 2 minutes. Wow, you started timing while I was still trying to get this thing to work. All right, 2 minutes. Here's Acquia Dev Desktop. Simple enough. You add a new Drupal site. It asks you what flavor. There are a bunch of different flavors. This is vanilla Drupal. Boston PHP. That's the name, PHP. This is all I do. Something is wrong. Invalid host name. Local site name. It probably is, isn't it? Something's wrong. Sorry?
I think it's not connected to the database. The database is not. Apache MySQL is not.
No, I didn't start it. Typically, when your computer doesn't crash right before you present, you have this thing running. So I'm clicking start. Time out. Hold the clock for just a moment while it starts. He's like unmoved. All right.
Got a stickler, Toby.
Yeah, well, he did get that instruction. All right. So suffice it to say, I downloaded it. I told it to run with this particular Drupal distribution in the sense that Linux means distribution, set up for a particular use case, read the use cases before you apply it. And I've got a running Drupal site. I promise I actually just downloaded that while I was sitting over there. I remember my username and password. This is one thing that it should warn you when you put it in before starting. I swear I do. Well, suffice to say, this is now a working vanilla Drupal website, and you can log in. You can go into the UI. It is all it takes to get going. There's a button actually, since Toby hasn't cut me off, because I know he will if I look. Host this site on Acquia Cloud. This is all it takes actually to move your site to a server for free. I'm not trying to sell their product by any means. You do the same thing with this other Drupal optimized host, Pantheon, using Calabox. When you need to bring it back and work on it more, Drupal works with database files and code. Files you don't care about because they're user contributed. As a developer, you don't care about them. But database and code you care about, and this moves back and forth without needing to mess with, a SQL sync. It does it, and that type of thing. Questions? How's that for packing it into 2 minutes?
Nice job.
Do I have time for questions, or did I use the question now?
You used it all up. All right, we're going to keep moving. So Nick's up.
Champions. Ask my questions to Nick, he knows.
If we have time at the end, we might be able to have questions about all the talks. If we have a little bit of time. Yeah.
Over some
All right, another Drupal talk. I'll just linger here for a second to make sure that this works. Not that I can do much about it other than tap some buttons.
So that's me. I don't have any slides, so this is the only thing that I'm going to show you. That's for the slides. The rest is all demo. That's my Twitter handle, and if it's easy to pronounce, you can call me Nick. And so I work at edX. How many of you here don't know about edX? Okay. How many of you have taken courses on edX? Awesome. So edX is like an online course platform. It's, if you have heard about Coursera or Khan Academy, where there are courses where people can take those courses, like read about it or watch some video tutorial and take some quiz after that course and get a certificate or something like that. So this is similar to that, except that Coursera is private and this is an open source and started by MIT and Harvard as founders of this project. So I work as a Drupal lead for this thing. The site that you see when you go to edX.org is built on Drupal, but the learning management system, the platform itself, is built on Python, which I'll show you a couple of. So like here, I'll quickly show you what it is to take a course on edX. And by the way, it segues into the talk that I'm giving, like the integration between Drupal and edX. So if you want to learn Drupal, I'm working on a platform because it's an open source thing to help in learning this Drupal through this platform, which will ease it up. So like if you want to take the Linux course, I mean, it's cool. I mean, it's not a required thing to learn about Drupal, but it's good to have a server control and learn about it. Since I've already registered, it's access. And this is the platform that I was talking. It's courses.edX.org, which is built on Python. And so here is how you will see it, like with weeks, curriculum, agenda, and you can take the courses, read about it, and take some quiz out of it. Like you can watch some video tutorials and understand it. And the cool thing that I like is not just like other platforms, it's not just multiple choice of quiz, but you can have more game-like interaction, like drag and drop, or for electronics and circuits course, you can actually drag the resistors and build a circuit out of it. And so it's more interactive way of learning something. To show that stuff, let's say if a person is learning about printing, configuring printing and stuff. So like you can watch some video on it. And you can have some interactive configuring, like here it shows instructions to how to configure a printer. Click adding printers and classes. Click add printer. So you've seen it, like, I mean, when you're playing with it, when you're doing the real action, I think it's a good way to learn something instead of just watching something on it. And so as I have said, this is an open source platform and anyone can build this. If you have a college or you're working for some university or something, you can have this platform for yourself and you can post these courses on your own site. It's code.edx.org and it's an open source platform, which is what I use to come up with some Drupal course that I think will be helpful for people who are interested in learning Drupal. So how these courses are created, like actually this is in my local host, and this is a studio platform where you create the course, and here I already started the course of creation, which like say I have some units, and if I want to add some loading. So the cool thing that I like is the different kinds of problems that you can add. Like you have seen in the Linux course, like there are multiple choice or checkboxes, and you can add more advanced things, as I was saying, the circuit schematic. I mean, not for a Linux course or not for a Drupal course, but for other things like drag and drop, image things and stuff. So, like for the Drupal thing, I have built a prototype kind of things where you can see, like if you're learning Drupal, let's say if you're going through a book of learning Drupal, like for Drupal Dino, we are using Drupal book. So, and if you're going through the book and if you're learning stuff, there are some cool, the book is actually very good if you're starting with Drupal, if you don't know anything about Drupal and if you want to come up with a site, they have this cool hands-on thing where they show you the steps on doing it with screenshots and stuff. So I have taken a couple of hands-on and just to prototype, like let's say you're learning how to change a site name for your site. Sure, this is taking some time to load. Let me refresh that. So what the background, what's happening is it will give you a question like here, as you see, change the site name to certain thing. And if you don't know how to do it, you can see the hint, a little bit of that. Or if you want the more detailed explanation on how to do it, you can see the answer on where to go and what to do kind of thing. And actually when the site loads, it's an iframe that's loading up. Yeah, so like when it loads up, there's in the site you can make the changes, and when you click on check, what it does is it goes to the site and runs some tests to confirm that you have done it. So if it's a multiple step process, it can check that and it can tell you where you have where it failed, where the step failed. So you know where it failed and you can take its suggestion, you can see the hint and answer for that. For some reason, the site is not loading up. Sorry. But yeah, this is the site that I was going to show. So yeah, one of the other quiz-like thing that I have developed for this demo was installing a WYSIWYG editor. I mean, for people who have already worked on Drupal, you might know how much process it takes to install a WYSIWYG editor in Drupal. When you install Drupal, it natively doesn't come with Drupal, but like you need to install a module and you need to install a library like CK editor or TinyMCE. You have to configure it, so which buttons to show and that kind of stuff. And there is a chance that, oh good, the site shows up. So let's say the book talks about installing a WYSIWYG editor, and like you can see the hints on what to do. And you can go to the modules. And just because I know how to install thing, I'm just going through it. And you can install modules through interface. And now that we have it, let's say the user checks if that's what he wants. So when he presses check, what is happening in the background is a script is going to the site, logging in as the administrator, and checking if the user has really installed the WYSIWYG thing as required for the site. So it says wrong. So obviously the user, it's not the user, what the user has done is not sufficient for this step of adding the CK editor library. So he sees what's wrong with this. So we can look at the hint. We downloaded the module, but we haven't enabled the module. So we can go to the modules page and enable the module. And so once it's saved, I guess I will check it so to make sure that the WYSIWYG module is installed. But it says that it's not sufficient because even though you install the module and you enable it, you didn't configure the module to use the library like the TinyMCE or CK editor. So you can look at the hint and look at the answer to make sure that the library exists and stuff. So that's what I was kind of wanting to come up with, this Drupal platform where learning Drupal would be easier and help you with in each step-by-step process kind of thing. And that's pretty much what I wanted to show and talk. If anyone has any question, I would like to answer.
Yeah, I have a question, Nick.
Sure.
So if you're installing Drupal locally, then you would have to have this platform also installed locally so it can detect what's going on. Is that correct?
Currently, it doesn't work with the local installation.
Okay.
But yeah, this is expecting the site to be publicly available. And because it's a test site, it's okay to give the admin username and password. So what's happening in the background is it's visiting the site, logging in, and making sure that the page has the appropriate elements in it.
Got it.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, Nick. Al, you're up. So Al's going to be talking about Stellar, which I didn't know what it was until about 20 minutes ago.
He changed it again. He's talking about something else now.
All right. Yep. And thank you, Toby. You're doing a great job. I appreciate it.
All right. Dang, okay. I'm gonna put my timer on, so I so I know what's going on.
Well, just go kind of late and don't keep it in the corner.
Okay.
Clock's running.
No. Yes, it started yet. I'm sorry. I'm going. I'm going to talk about Stellar. Stellar is a new cryptocurrency that is launched a few weeks ago. I'm trying to get the right page here, but we'll start with this one. So cryptocurrency. So if anybody's heard of Bitcoin, anybody? Oh wow, look at all those hands. Okay, great. So you've heard of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is the first and most well-known and most popular what is now called a cryptocurrency, right? A cryptocurrency is a new form of money for the internet, right? So I don't have time to get into all the geopolitical blah 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 about fiat versus digital and the whole thing and mining and all that. But suffice it to say, the thing I do like to talk about when I talk about cryptocurrencies is that it's an invention, like anything else that has been invented over the years. And once something's been invented, it cannot be uninvented. Right? So we now have this new thing called cryptocurrency. And even though many of us are probably at a point now where we have pretty locked in solid thinking about what we think money is and transfer value and all that kind of thing. But our kids and their kids will be using cryptocurrency. They won't be using dollars or anything. Money is already mostly digital now anyways. You know, when you get paid, it's just one debit going from one account to another account, right? There's no dollars flowing in there, right? You know, it's just digits and bits in the computer that say, you know, this person now owes you this amount of money, right? When you write a check to somebody, right, all that is happening is you're telling your bank to owe somebody that amount of money, right? And when that person shows up at the bank, they can just go and withdraw that amount of money, right? It goes into your account, right? Nobody's trucking money across the, you know, from bank to bank, right? If I'm at Bank of America and you're at Citizens, nobody's moving $50 bills, $100 bills, right, from my bank to your bank. That's how it works. It's already digital now, right? So Bitcoin, 2009, Satoshi, Magic Guy, you know, creates this new thing as a response to the financial collapse that we need a new way of dealing with money so that you don't have to trust a third party, right? The innovation that Bitcoin is that you no longer have to trust a third party in order to do transactions, right? Anybody can pay anybody any amount anywhere in the world, right, without relying on a bank, Visa, MasterCard, any of these things, right? It's a peer-to-peer technology, right? So that's the invention, right, that Bitcoin is. And every other cryptocurrency, right, that exists now, because now there are literally hundreds, right? We got Litecoin, we got Peercoin, we got Namecoin, we got Dogecoin, we got all these other things, right, that are forks of Bitcoin, essentially. Most of them are forks. The computer science and financial invention is something called proof of, there's so many proofs now. So a lot of these use a thing called proof of stake, right? This is proof of work, right? The way that we solve the problem of, one, not relying on a third party, right? Because we did that with the financial collapse and we saw what happened there, right? And solving the double spend problem, because we've had digital currencies before, but the problem was I could spend, like I could send, you know, some money to somebody, and if that money didn't show up in a little central depository, I could spend it again. I could send it to somebody else, right? That was the problem that digital currencies had, and Bitcoin was the first one to solve this problem, right? Coming up with a way so that you cannot double spend, right? And it uses cryptography and all that kind of stuff, right? Fast forward to a few years ago, there was a project called Ripple, right? Ripple is a open payment network that allows you to pay anybody in any currency you want anywhere in the world, right? So if I have dollars and you want euros or pesos, you know, Ripple facilitates going from one currency to another, and you don't have to worry about it, right? It uses a currency called XRP, right, to facilitate these transfers, right? And XRP itself is a cryptocurrency, right? It has all those kind of things. Stellar is a fork of Ripple, right? So because all these projects are open source, you know, anybody can make any modifications that they want. The difference between Ripple and all the other sort of Bitcoin-related things, that Bitcoin has a thing called mining, right? Whereas a miner, you try to solve this problem, and whatever miner solves that problem first, you get the next block. And the next block currently contains 25 Bitcoins, right? The closing price of Bitcoin is about $500 per Bitcoin, right? So you get 25, so 25 times 500, a few $1,000s, right? Bitcoin has been as high as $1,200 a Bitcoin, but a couple years ago, it was like 5 cents, right? So we've gone all the way from literally nothing to 1,200, and now we're back at about 500, right, for a Bitcoin, right? Stellar and Ripple use a thing called consensus, right? There's no mining. There's a block that creates all the Ripple or all the Stellar there's ever going to be, and those blocks are that currency is now distributed to people, right? So what I wanted to let you guys know about today is that Stellar is just launched a few weeks ago, and this is the team of people. So some people that you may recognize, like Joe Ito over at the Media Lab is one of the board members and advisors. We have Matt Mullenweg, who's the WordPress guy. We have some other people who are sort of known in the startup and tech communities, right? So the thing I want to let you guys know about is you can, right, and this is so the little icon here is the rocket ship going to the moon, right? That's kind of their thing. Oh yeah, the PayPal guy is one of the investors. They got $3 million from Stripe. Stripe is a startup that actually was a brother team. One brother went to MIT, one brother went to Harvard, and they created Stripe, which is an online payment processor that if you're doing any kind of web development, they're using PayPal, which is kind of horrible to use and has all kinds of other issues. Stripe is great, right, to use for taking payments online. So if you're doing e-commerce, the e-commerce class you guys are going to do, you might want to look at Stripe as a way. I just did it for a site, incredibly easy and great. But anyways, those guys gave money to start this whole Stellar thing, right? So one thing you can do is you can log in with your Facebook account, right? So right now, just to get things started, they're giving away 5,000 Stellar, right? That's the name of the currency to anybody who wants it, right? You just use your Facebook account, right, to sign in, and just for signing in, you can see here I've done it. You create a wallet, get a username, and just for doing that, you get 5,000 Stellar, right? Just like Bitcoin, it's divisible to 8 decimal places. It has all the other features of a cryptocurrency. And then you do something else. I think you email somebody, do something, and you get more, right? The whole point, no cryptocurrency is all that useful if it's not widely used, if it's not distributed. That's the point of doing this, that the more they give away, because the total ledger for Stellar, just like Ripple, is 100 billion, right? It's 100 billion Stellar that will ever, not quite ever, because there's inflation built into Stellar, unlike Ripple, but like Bitcoin has 21 million Bitcoin that will ever be mined. There's only 100 billion Stellar or Ripple that will exist, right? So the point is to give them away, give them to people so they can start using them, and the value of a single Stellar will rise as there's more usage, right, of that cryptocurrency, right? So this is brand new, just a few weeks ago it got started. So right now I just checked. One Stellar is like a fraction of a penny right now, right? So 5,000 of them, I don't know, you might be able to buy some penny candy, a pack of gum, something like that, right? But that's today, right? We don't know what the value will be a couple years from now, because there are people, you may know the famous Bitcoin pizza story, right, where a guy paid 25,000 Bitcoin for a couple pizzas, right? Because Bitcoin at the time were worth, I don't know, 10 cents, 20 cents a piece. And now, of course, today's price, that was a couple $1 million worth of Bitcoin, right, that were used to pay for that pizza. So all you got to do is go to launch.stellar.org, right, and you can use your Facebook account, if you have Facebook, to authenticate. And just for doing that, you'll get 5,000 Stellar, right? And that's how things will kick off. It's open source, people can contribute, they can do things. Just like Ripple, it allows you to send any currency to anybody you want for next to nothing, that anywhere in the world, right? So if I'm in the U.S. and I want to pay somebody in Mexico pesos, or in Europe, euros, or UK pounds, there are a thing called a gateway, right? A gateway deals in pairs of currencies. You take one and then you can distribute the other, right? So you have gateways that will do dollars to pesos, dollars to whatever other currency you want, and then these gateways will enable fiat currencies to pass around the same way that cryptocurrencies can flow around. So that's my quick thing. I have 4 minutes to go. Questions? What am I talking about? Listen. Yes, sir. Yes.
Hi, how you doing? I'll ask a question about that. So when was the inception?
It was like end of July. It's like July 30th.
So
it's very recent. Brand new, yes. Yes, sir.
You mentioned there's inflation
Yes. So let me just quickly talk about that. Bitcoin is deflationary, right? Meaning that because there's a set limit to the number of Bitcoin that will ever exist, in theory, if you subscribe to economic theory, that over time, the Bitcoin I have becomes more valuable, right? Because there's a set limit to how many will ever exist, right? Unlike most fiat currencies, there's no central bank, there's no government that's going to print a whole lot more, which makes yours less valuable, right? So that's how dollars work, where people make more dollars, the dollars we have are worth less, takes more of those dollars to buy the same thing. There's about 3–4% inflation with fiat, like with dollars. Ripple doesn't have inflation, but Stellar does, meaning that every year 1%, you'll get a 1% more Stellar of what you have, right? So whatever you have, you get 1% more as a part of inflation for this. So that's actually new for this kind of currency. There are lots of other cryptocurrencies that do opposite stuff, that if you don't use the money, it actually loses value, right? So the demurrage, right, where in order to encourage you to spend the money, we will make it lose value if you don't use it. So there's all kinds of these experiments being used to kind of do various things with money that you couldn't do before. But yes, Stellar is a 1% inflation per year kind of setup. So you'll get more. You get 1% more of whatever you already have once you pass them. Any other questions? I have 2 minutes and 40 seconds left. Yes, sir. Yes, right over here.
Hi, I guess I'm just curious if you're worried about the legitimacy of cryptocurrency at this point.
Nope, not worried at all.
I know we had a problem with Bitcoin where anti-docs stole so much of the money.
That was an IT and security problem. And yes, let me just say, right, because when you are using Bitcoin and most other cryptocurrencies, you are your own bank, right? Which means you have to secure your stuff, right? So if your hard drive crashes, the very famous Bitcoin story where a guy mined a bunch of Bitcoin back in the day, it wasn't worth much, the Bitcoin was worth a whole lot, his hard drive crashed, it was in a land dump, he went to the dump, they tried to find his hard drive to get his Bitcoin back. Let me just say that the government has ruled, IRS has ruled, that Bitcoin is property. Yep, 1 minute, 50 seconds. So that they will treat it like stock, right? If you buy or sell it, you'll pay a capital gains, right? FinCEN, the regulations around money laundering and everything, they consider it to be a foreign currency, right? So we have two parts of the government who don't agree necessarily what it is. Just about legitimacy, right now, the current market cap for Bitcoin is over $7 billion. And that's at the current price. It's been $14 billion when the price was much higher. So this, like I said at the beginning, this is an invention. We will look back, just like email, right? Back in the 90s, right? When, oh my God, that's never gonna be a big deal. That's not gonna replace anything. And now, we're gonna have that. Yes, sir. Sorry.
I think one of the powers of Bitcoin that it's distributed. Is Stellar distributed, or if their site goes down, all stuff?
So you mean decentralized, right? Yeah. That's the buzzword in the Bitcoin world, right? Short answer is yes, it is decentralized, and there are verifier things. Anybody can run their own Stellar server, right? If you want to take Stellar or be your own exchange, you can just download the software, compile it, and go, right? So there's no centralization going on. There's somebody had a question over there. I got 30 seconds left. Somebody else had a hand? There's no blockchain.
Right. So that's the issue.
No, that's not an issue because instead of using a blockchain for mining, they use a ledger called consensus, right? So all the servers agree on what the next set of things is going to be.
Currencies, like the first application technology. Underlying technology, Bitcoin is the bigger picture.
I agree. We're going to talk at Champions because I'm now out of time. But I'll be happy to talk to you about Bitcoin and the whole underlying thing. But it is true that you're right. Moving value is just the first application of these technologies. We'll use them. No, they're not two separate things. But I'll talk to you about it later.
All right, next up is Aaron. So the next two, and actually the final two lightning talks that we have are about performance. So Aaron's going to be talking about using third-party services like Amazon and some CDN services to make sure that you can have a site that performs the way it's supposed to.
We've been using this one.
Yeah.
All right. All right. All right. So I'm going to talk briefly about using CDNs to make your site perform better. So it used to be the prevalence of big companies having high-load sites, but they've come down in price quite a bit, and there's some interesting options available. So basically, I run the Summerville Open Studios website, and Summerville Open Studios occurs once a year. So generally, it's the first weekend of May, so we get a lot of traffic about a week before and during the event. And then the rest of the year, it dies down pretty significantly. But like mentions on popular media sites can cause us high loads, like Boston.com will mention us, and we get a ton of traffic. And then this is a similar problem that like events like music festivals and art festivals and time-based events have. And it's hard to test sometimes. I mean, there are load testing available, but this is a pretty small project, and it's a small organization, it's a nonprofit. So it's good for the site to be up when the event's happening. So that's important. So here's like our yearly load, and this is the event itself, and then it comes down to pretty low level. It's pretty constant, but kind of a low level. So how do I solve this problem? So one way you can do this is you can host on a cloud service like DigitalOcean, Amazon, Linode, or something. And then when you know load's coming, you can spin up a larger server that will handle your traffic. The problem is it requires manually knowing that this is going to happen. Sometimes you don't know when the traffic's going to come. And it doesn't really lower your server traffic. Like your website still has to serve all the content. One thing I did for a few years was I selectively host large content, like images and PDFs, on a separate server. Use a subdomain, spin up a server, put all my images there. That's the majority of our traffic. I used S3, and it distributes the load. It's pretty reliable, but it's somewhat slow. And you have to sync it. So when a user goes in and uploads a new art image, I have to run a job to send it over to Amazon S3. So what I ended up doing this year was using a CDN. So CDN serves content from a network of servers that caches your content automatically. So it scales automatically. So as traffic comes in, they have a lot of bandwidth. They can allocate more bandwidth and stuff. You can set up caching rules, like flush the cache always every hour, so your site's pretty much up to date. So some companies that do this, like Akamai, Cloudflare, Fastly. So how it works. So basically, CDN sits between, this is your web server, this is your content delivery network. So when users are coming in, the CDN will grab the request, and if it's cacheable, it will just send the results back, not even going to your server. Some requests, like your site has a lot of dynamic content, it has to pass that through and back. So depending on what kind of thing you're serving, is how effective it can be. So you can also set up rules for what you want to cache, how often it gets flushed, stuff like that. So this is more about CDN. It's the delivery network. It definitely caches. The one I use is Cloudflare, and it's pretty smart about figuring out what is static and what's not. Like, for example, if you're serving your own versions of jQuery, it will know that, hey, this never changes, keep serving it the same way. Every once in a while, it will check. And the other advantage is if you have like a big bigger company, the CDN will actually cache it on servers closer to where your people are visiting from. So there'll be a network of servers across the US. So if your CDN has a lot of servers, like if you have someone in California visiting, they'll get a cached version from California, a cached version from, if you're coming from Massachusetts, they'll get a cached version from Massachusetts. So how it works, or at least this is Cloudflare. So basically what I did currently, this is how it's set up, is it automatically passes through all these subdomains to the web server. And right now I have images set to use the CDN. So any request for images, all my images are stored on the images2 subdomain, images2.org. And then when a request comes in, it's using the cache to serve it. So this is the result of the event, the day of the event, the first day of the event anyway. So we had like 341,000 requests, and it was able to 380,000 requests. I was able to serve 340,000 of them through cache. And by using this CDN, I was able to remove 4.2 gigabytes of bandwidth from the web server, which is pretty small. But it actually saved quite a significant amount of traffic for the event. So it was pretty useful. So there's some cautions for when you're using a CDN. So when you do a change to your website, you upload it, and you go to visit the website, it sometimes isn't always available because it's serving you the cached version. So use the direct link if they give you one, or make sure you flush the cache once you've deployed new code. Highly dynamic sites won't see as much savings. If you're serving all dynamic pages, you won't see the bandwidth savings as much. I found that the extra hop adds a little bit of latency to serving. Like Home Studio serves a little bit slower through the CDN, even with the large files, because there's an extra layer of caching. I don't know what it's doing, but the price, it's a small price to pay for being able to stay up for high loads. It's not always cheap. But the version we used, I think, Cloudflare. I think it's free, unless you want to use SSL, then it's $20 a month. And it goes up from there, depending on what features you use. And we used to use the Apache web logs to look at what was accessing the site. You can't do that anymore because CDN is serving you a lot of your content. You'll never see it on your web server. Never hits your web server. And try it. So if you want to try it, Cloudflare has a basic service for your blog or whatever. That's pretty much it. I'm @gmail.com. I'm on Twitter, Google+. Questions?
I have a question. With HTTP 2.0 coming out and the pre-generation with HTTP 2.0 coming out and the pre-gen Speedy,
yeah,
it's more like a WebSockets model where you connect to the server once. And there are some accounts that says, actually, you just want to not make multiple connections from the web browser, the client, to the server. Just keep the network connection open and stream those changes down.
WebSockets.
Yeah. So how do you think the CDNs are going to change? I mean, obviously they can support the new protocol, but now where do we draw that line? You know, like in your opinion, like the whole idea, like CDNs, we're not saving that much anymore, but they could still be important. How do you see that working out?
I don't know. I don't know where it's going, actually. To be honest.
I can answer this question.
All right.
So short answer is that I'm pretty loud though, but the short answer is that yeah, Speedy and HTTP is great. The main savings here is that you don't have to make multiple connections to the server, right? And that there's a lot of latency with bringing up and spinning down connections, right? So that's one thing. And you got compression and everything has to be secure now with HTTP 2.0. But for large things, it doesn't solve the speed of light problem, which is if I got to serve content around the globe, right? I still need CDN because I still need to get it
it'll get much faster. If I have to send images to Hawaii, it's better for a server with my content to serve it to people in Hawaii, not coming all the way from Boston if that's where my server is located, right? So, you know, speed doesn't change that issue, right? You still need to have your content as close as you can. That's really the advantage of a CDN, right? Is to get your content as close as you can to the person who's requesting it. You know, the other stuff is also great, but that's really the thing that CDNs do, is that, you know, if I'm in, you know, Indonesia, I need to hit a server that's closer to Indonesia, not going all the way through a cable in the Atlantic or the Pacific, and that's the real issue. So speed is going to be great for other things, but it's not going to change the need for most big sites for CDN.
Any other questions? I'm out.
All right, nice job. Thanks, Aaron. All right, our last lightning talk is John Foley, who's also going to be talking about issues related to performance and distributing load across multiple servers. Yeah, it's PH0820. And is this HDMI? Yes. Go right to that.
I'm looking on your chair. Here.
Try it one more time. I didn't have HDMI inside.
You know, if you're using HDMI, there's another setting you need on the touchscreen.
That button, right?
Yeah, you gotta switch from VGA to HDMI on the touchscreen.
Yep, we're there.
Okay.
Is that your only form of output?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No. What was the last setting? It seemed to recognize. Where's the notifications go? Let's see. Try the auxiliary display. Display. Happening before? No. It's something, right? Yeah. Right.
So it's on this screen.
Yeah, let's see here.
I'm just gonna get the resolution just a little better.
Won't let you change it?
640. I'm just not gonna hear.
Back on that. Okay. I'm gonna try it back on that. That lets you change the white resolution, right? Just leave it there. I'm just going to back, okay? Yeah. We're texting the camera. Can you do it in 640 by 480? No. Let's try it back here. So we're stuck on 640 there, right?
Clean out of the video.
All right, everyone. Sorry this took so long to get set up. So what I want to talk to you guys about today is the best way to scale PHP web apps. I know that when we first get started programming PHP and we get everything going, we kind of just get set up on one server, right? We got our entire stack set up, Apache, PHP, MySQL, what have you. It's kind of all sits on one box, and for a while that works great for us. And then hopefully our application gets better and more people start to use it, and we eventually move to two boxes, and we start to separate the database and the web layer so that we can essentially have all of our database power on one server and all of our web processing power on another server. PHP gets everything, all the resources it needs, and MySQL gets a high key buffer, and everyone's happy. But after a while, this doesn't work for us either. And when you have a big software as a service app that's got a lot of traffic, we've got WebSockets, we've got data that's updating all the time, so we don't need refreshes, maybe it's a single page app. We've got a lot of AJAX requests going, third-party consumable APIs, so other software can use your application. Maybe you're doing media encoding. I mean, really these days, web apps can do nearly everything a desktop app can do, right? So you have a lot more process-intensive things happening on your web server. Report generation, big data processing, it's all there. And after a while, this isn't good enough either. And we start moving towards the part where we need more scalability. So what you'll see a lot of people do is implement an architecture like this, where essentially you come into the web, a person will come into your first web server or your first server, and it'll be a web proxy. And that web proxy will send you to any number of web servers which you need. So you might have one, you might have two, which we have in this diagram, but you could have 10 if you really had the popularity and you had enough people going to the site that you need that many servers. In my experience, this has always been a good architecture, and where a lot of the grunt work is done is, again, on the PHP side, on the web servers. You won't, I mean, the proxies don't care how much traffic you have. They'll always stay the same. You have probably a 5, 12 megabyte Linux box, and it'll always stay that way. And then for the database servers, I've found if you just get two, running master application, two quad-core boxes, you'll never need to change that either. And really all that you ever need to change is the amount of web servers you're running. So this is a nice architecture for that. And also because if you have several web servers, let's say you have 2 or 3, if one of them goes down, your site's still up because the other 2 web servers can support the rest of the load. So what you need to think about now is how you're going to load balance it. And there's 3 ways of load balancing. 2 of them are very similar and 1 is different. Essentially, you have an IP hash, you have a round-robin load balancing, and least connection. Least connection and round-robin are similar because they require distributed caching, and IP hash is kind of in a class of its own because you really don't need to actually change anything about how you set up your web box when you're using an IP hash. For those of you who aren't that familiar with what an IP hash is, it essentially just takes your IP address, hashes it, and then mods it by the number of web servers you have. So for example, whatever the public IP address of this, whatever the private network here is at the Microsoft Center, the public IP out into the internet is always going to be the same. So our IP will get hashed, and then it'll get modded to either a 1 or a 2, and it will get sent to either one of those web servers, and every single time we get sent back to that same server, right? So if we log into web server 1, we're always getting sent back to web server 1. And our session data, our captcha images, all of our data, essentially, that's associated with us as a user is also on web server 1, and web server 2 never cares about us. Some other person out at their house might be getting IP hash to web server 2. And so the load is kind of unevenly distributed, but it's still distributed depending on your IP. The problem where this comes in is if you have a large company that starts to use your application. A year ago, I worked for a company called Time Trade Systems, and we got Best Buy as a client. And we were running an IP hash on our load balancer for 3 web servers. So the first day we went live with Best Buy, every single person that works at Best Buy was logging into our application, and they were all coming from the same public IP. Therefore, we had 1 web server that was just getting absolutely killed. And the other 2 were kind of just sitting there like, hey, we're not really doing anything. And so obviously we had to change that. So the way you can change that is by doing a distributed caching. And I'll show you what that is in a minute. So back in this architecture, distributed caching is this little blue line. It essentially just shows that the web servers are in some sort of communication. So you log into web server 1, and web server 2 also knows about you. So for these, you have 4 main options here that I've mentioned. There's others. People might have different biases on what they prefer. Redis is great. MongoDB, Cassandra by Apache, and Memcached. If you're going to do some advanced data modeling, if you're going to do some things where you need advanced data structures, you've got red-black trees, you've got priority queues, linked lists. Redis is great. But if you want simple key value store and distributed data between your servers, I really prefer Memcached. They work well with PHP. They're easy to set up and install, and you can essentially have multiple web servers running like that. So I want to get out of this real quick, and I want to get into an actual demo. I'm going to throw up a little. I'm trying to do this with my screens on. How do I get a little bit more? Try to find out how to move my terminal over. Just bear with me for just a sec, please.
Okay. You should be able to drag it from your screen to that screen.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So here we've got a terminal.
You might want to make the text a little bigger if you can.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Let me just also I gotta get my one other thing here, and then I'll be in business. This. And I also need one more thing. I'm gonna be quick. If I can just get on my stuff. So I'm also going to use this program called KeyPass. I don't know how many you guys actually do server management, but if you're a good server manager, you know there's a million passwords that you've got. So you can use this program called KeyPass to help you log in. So I'm just going to log in. You saw that server architecture I had that had 6 servers. There's a web load balancer, 2 web servers, a Microsoft load balancer, or a MySQL load balancer, and 2 MySQL servers. So I actually have that set up with DigitalOcean right now. and I'll log in with you guys and show you how this is actually going to work. So I'm going to log into the first Zen server. Oh, it's going to complain. Okay, I'm going to get in. And then I'm going to say, send one password. Well, I'm not actually able to get into the servers for some reason. I don't know why that's not working. But essentially, what will happen is if you can essentially install memcached on both the servers. You can do apt-get install memcached or yum install memcached, and then you can install the PHP5 memcached library, and you just go into the PHP config php.ini, and you can change the session.save save handler from files to memcached, and the save path to basically TCP, and then the IP address that you're running memcached on, port 11 to 11, and you'll be able to have a distributed session there. I don't know why I can't log in. I wish I could get into this. I know this works.
Yeah, it could be blocking. Yeah, it could be blocking IP restrictions.
Yeah. Well, I'm unable to tunnel in, but essentially, if you want to set up memcached, it's a very easy way to get set up, and you can run multiple web servers very easily. So I found it very useful. Are there any questions? Yeah.
Where does the memcache sit? Like it sits on a server, right? So
right. So
you have multiple web servers. Do you just have a separate memcache server? Or do you just keep
Great question. I should have explained that. So I'm really a big fan of Nginx. I started using Nginx about 6 months ago and never went back to Apache. I hope you guys all try it out. The syntax is simpler, and I think it actually performs way better. Memcached you install on each web server, and essentially then you log into memcached on each server. So you go into the /etc/memcache.conf file and have memcached listen on the private IP address of that server. So you say listen on whatever the private IP is, and then so you always have that service listening. You're going to have to essentially open up a little hole in your firewall to allow memcached to work there. And then once that's running on your server, you just point PHP toward all the private IPs of the web servers, and in each file. So in your save handler will be memcached, and your save path will be TCP:// first web server 11 to 11, comma, then you'll do the next one. And essentially, every single time you save any session data, instead of saving to the normal file on the web server, which by default is var lib php5 is where PHP default saves session data, it'll save it to memcache, which will save to all the servers. So it makes it much easier to spread the data. So essentially, on all the web servers, you have memcache installed, and then you have all the PHP INIs on all the web servers pointing to each other. And that's how it essentially works.
So basically, the session data is saved across all the servers.
Right.
So is there a problem if a server goes down, or does it memcache kind of smartly? Not, because I can't get a hold of that one. Yeah.
Memcache attempts to send to that server. It'll attempt every time, but it won't actually cause a failure. So it's kind of nice how that works.
Are you using a proxy, and Nginx is your proxy?
Nginx is proxying to the web servers, which are Nginx.
So it is a web server. So that's what I'm saying. It has a web server and a proxy. That's wondering if a lot of people use the proxy in Nginx to do the caching and stuff.
Yeah, like Varnish cache.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty popular. But I don't actually do that. I have the load balancer in Nginx, and then the web servers all run Nginx and PHP 5.5 FPM, process management, works well with Nginx.
I appreciate your presentation. I'm kind of a newcomer, and it's probably obvious to everyone else, but like what I see happen in the theme, whether it's cryptocurrency or applications or how to get access to a server, is everything is becoming more decentralized. What was used to be very coveted information maybe 20 years ago, it seems like it's becoming a little bit more mainstream and user friendly. And there's a decentralization of satellites. There's more satellites, more resources. Was the theme that I thought I saw interpreted. So really appreciate the presentation.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I would agree with you. And I think that, other people, if you really have an application that's important, you might have a data center in New York and a data center in Texas, and you'd be able to easily switch back and forth if you need to. So, yeah, absolutely. Any other questions?
All right. All right, thanks, John, and thanks to everybody who presented. I really like the lightning talk nights. I like when people come up out of the audience, and you get to see so many different things in one night. It's great. So I really appreciate it. Thanks again, Shape Up, for the pizza. We hope to see you in September for that API talk, and maybe you are the presenter for the API talk, or you know somebody. So please spread the word around that we're looking for that presenter. Head to Champions Bar with Bobby, and don't forget Northeast PHP September 6th and 7th. And Toby, you kept us on track. I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.